Welcome to the Hunting Beast Report, a live video podcast with Dan Infalt and host Jeremy Gillespie.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast. All right. Good evening, everyone. Today we're live with special guest Jack Butler of Gumleaf Boots and Arxus Boots, which we're going to get into in a minute. And as always, Dan Infalt. Dan, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Awesome. Jack, thanks for joining us. We wanted to have you on because there's been a transition from Gumleaf to Arxus, and I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. So we wanted to get you on here and first of all say what happened to Gumleaf and Gumleaf USA.
Oh, well, first, thank you very much to both you and Dan. Happy to be here and explain to our customers as well as our future customers what's going on. It's we're really in a state of transition right now. Back last November, I received word from our factory, which was located over in Slovakia. So Eastern Europe is where Gumleaf boots are made by hand, or were made by hand. And I got word from the factory that for a variety of different reasons, they were no longer going to be making tall rubber boots. So it would have been a little easier to take if they said after this next production run, we're not going to be making any more boots for you. But they didn't. They just, kind of said, that's it. We're not making boots anymore. And the reasons were kind of valid. First of all, they back up to the Ukraine, so they were having a lot of issues there. Energy costs in Europe are sky high. Ever since COVID, they lost a lot of their more seasoned tradespeople, who knew how to make rubber boots by hand and had done it for the last 30 or 40 years. A lot of those seasoned tradespeople just fell out after COVID. And then lastly, they also they make a line of sneakers that's very popular in Europe called Novesta. And so for them to stop making Novesta rubber sneakers 2 or 3 times a year to make boot runs for Gumleaf, I think they realized wasn't in their best interest. So for all those reasons, they kind of said, that was it. And so, 11 to 12 years of having built up the Gumleaf brand here was, looked like it was going to, just be shot. But I went into the marketplace and, just to see if I could find another handmade all natural rubber boot. And the guy that started Gumleaf back in 1993 is a gentleman by the name of Alistair Patterson. And he and I have stayed in contact. He sold the Gumleaf brand about 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was. And he's the one that told me that I should really check out these boots, Arxus. And they're out of Sweden. And he said they're really sweeping Europe. And he said it seems to be a really high quality boot. And so I contacted Arxus and told them that, we kind of had a perfect storm brewing here. They don't know it yet, or they didn't know it yet. But I said Gumleaf, both in Europe as well as here in the United States, is going to be going away. And so I, looking for another high quality, handmade, all natural rubber boot. And so that was kind of the beginning of our initial discussions. I asked them to send me 4 pairs of boots, 2 that I wanted to try on, a pair for my wife, and I sent a pair to Dan. And then for the last 3.5 or 4 months or so, I've just been testing them out and wearing them in a variety of different settings, checking out the quality, the comfort. I'd like to say the durability as well, but, in 4 months, you really can't test the durability of a pair of boots. But knowing that these were made of all natural rubber, I was quite confident that, like the Gumleaf brand, that the all natural rubber was going to give them a nice long life. measured. I've got customers of Gumleaf who came up to me during Pheasant Fest and the recent BHA meeting that I attended in Minneapolis and things, people that have had their Gumleaf boots now for 6, 7, and 8 years. So, that's the kind of lifespan you can get. Costs you a little bit more for all natural rubber boots, but really, if you do the math on it, at the end of the day, you're better off than spending $1.50 or $200 for a cheap pair of uncomfortable boots that are going to crack on you in a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
So
you want to talk about that a little bit, because I happen to know that if you go back to, like, let's say the early 90s and stuff, there were good rubber boots even in the US. There was like Lacrosse and a bunch of others, but once they went to overseas and stuff, a lot of those manufacturers started doing things to cut costs and so that their boots didn't last 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it's like planned obsolescence or something, right?
So they started mixing in plastics and stuff. And you want to talk about that a little bit, because you're more of an expert on that than I am.
Yeah, well,
so it must be, my point is, too, how hard it is for you to find, you had to go through a lot to find a actual boot that's made out of 100% rubber, made the old way.
Yeah. And they're getting harder and harder to find. First of all, as you said, almost all production has virtually left the United States of, an all natural rubber boot. You just can't find them. You can find people that are assembling boots here, but not anybody that's, melting down rubber and going through the whole smelly factory process that you have to go through in order to make a rubber boot. There's one company in North America that's still making all natural rubber boots, and they're in Canada, just outside of Montreal. So last November, once I got word that Gumleaf wasn't going to be made anymore, I called this company and drove up there to see their factory and talk with them to see if there was a possibility that they would be able to make Gumleaf boots for us. But it's kind of a smelly operation. I mean, it's a factory environment, and you're dealing with rubber that you're heating up to super high temperatures and, putting through a lot of industrial processes. And, there's probably a fair amount of air pollution associated with it. And so it's just kind of, it's not an industry that younger people are dying to get into. They can work from home behind a computer screen. Why on earth would they want to go, work in a factory situation like that? So anyway, I went up and met with them, and this particular company only does work under government contract. So they felt it was going to be at least a year, maybe 2 years, if they could do it. And a critical part of making a rubber boot, and Dan, you would know this, but is what lasts you use. The last is like the mold that's used, to wrap the rubber around and the other components. And so that's a really critical component in manufacturing a tall rubber boot. And lasts are expensive because they're made of aluminum generally, because they have to be able to withstand vulcanization, which is basically where you're melting the various layers of rubber, or the upper to the lower, and things like that. So it's not the kind of industry that we see here in the United States. And as evidenced in November, it's an industry that's even leaving Europe now. So,
even if we did it in the United States, based on air pollution regulation and cost to manufacture in the rubber industry in the USA, I would be willing to bet those boots would be $600 to $800 here.
Oh, easily. Yeah. Real easily. So things didn't pan out with the company up in Canada that's doing government contract work. They have a really interesting product. I don't know if you've ever heard of bunny boots, but oh, you have? Yeah. So that's where they make them, and it was really cool to see. For anybody that hasn't seen them, hold on a second.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Those are
that
cool.
is a bunny boot. Yeah, they're they're actually they're not well designed, but they make these for the U.S. government, military only, and Canadian military, and the UK military, and they're rated to like 70 below zero. They're not as heavy as you would think, but there's a whole heck of a lot of wool and felt wrapped up in to separate your feet from the ground and everything, and to allow them to claim that they're good down to 70 below. So unfortunately, our winters for the last 2 years haven't really even been cold enough to test these things. So could have worn sneakers most of the last winter here in Rochester, New York. But so anyway, so I came across Arxus, and as I said, it was as soon as we started talking, they had no plans to come to the United States. They were very happy with the way their distribution was going and spreading quickly in Europe. And for a variety of reasons, I understand why they weren't interested in coming to the United States initially. It's not like, we have the largest market in the world, but there are huge hurdles to entry here. Namely, the duty that you have to pay is like one of the highest that people from FedEx, for example, have ever heard of. They thought I was crazy when I told them that you have to pay almost 40% duty on rubber boots that I bring in. So that's a big barrier, and Arxus had no plans to come to North America. But when I told them about what I had done with Gumleaf and everything, discussions perked right up. And so it was about 3 weeks ago now, we finally inked a deal, and we just went live with the Arxus USA website last Monday.
Yeah, I was kind of on the inside of that, and I was pretty excited about this boot coming out because now me and you had some private discussions about it, and you sent me a pair to test, and I thought it was remarkable how similar it was to Gumleaf. I mean, the boot you're making with Arxus is pretty much the same boot, same quality.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between them, and there's a lot of differences as well. They're both, I would say, extremely high quality boots. They're both handmade. They're both all natural rubber. There are some pros and cons, I would say, to some of the different styles. If you got big calves, the Gumleaf boot is still a better boot for you. Or if you want to tuck in heavy hunting pants. Arxus doesn't have a boot that opens up as much in the calf as Gumleaf does. And Arxus is doing some really kind of novel things with linings that, I think are pretty advanced. They have a couple of different pairs or styles of boots that actually have what they call an air cell lining that actually helps wick moisture out of the lower part of the boot and evaporate it out the shaft of the boot. So your feet stay warm, but they also stay drier. They have more styles than Gumleaf. We always at Gumleaf wanted to develop an ankle high boot, something that wasn't as tall as the Gumleaf boots are. But we just over the last 5 years,
tall part is a huge part of why the people on our side really like the Gumleaf and will like Arxus, because they're probably 3 inches more higher, maybe 4 inches higher than the standard boots most people are buying. And when you swamp hunt or you marsh hunt, it's usually right there at the top of the competitor's boots where you I just got it full, and I'm not getting that with Gumleaf because I'm not hitting water quite that deep. I mean, they're right up to my knees.
Yeah. The Gumleaf boots, depending on, obviously it was size dependent. The height of the boot ran by size. So Gumleaf ran from like a European 37 up to a European 47. So that was like a woman's 7 to a men's 13. The Arxus boot spans a little bit greater. I'm still familiarizing myself a little bit with their sizing and how the sizing of Arxus compares with the sizing of the Gumleaf boots, but they're pretty close, particularly in men's sizes. But the Gumleaf boots, in like a men's 10 or 11 or 13s like yours, they were all 18 inches tall. And the Arxus boots are a little bit shorter. they're more like 17. So we lose an inch there. So like I said, there's some trade-offs between them. They're both really high quality. They're all natural rubber, handmade, and all that stuff. But there's little trade-offs between them. But overall, I have to say I'm very happy with my experience with the Arxus boots over the last 4 months. And I still have quite a few of the Gumleaf boots, particularly in the Viking Neos. So for the next, probably through this fall, I'm anticipating being in a state of transition where, I'll be selling off the remainder of the Gumleaf stock and inventory that I have. And I'm literally, week by week now building up my inventory of the Arxus brand.
Yeah, for anybody that's interested, I put a link to both websites, so Gumleaf USA and Arxus USA, in the video description. So if you're looking at checking out either boot, you can see those. And those are the US specific websites that Jack runs.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And what's the story? Is there any story behind the name of Arxus? Do you know?
Yeah, there is. And it's very interesting. The guy who is the principal designer for Arxus, who's really responsible for the brand, is a guy by the name of Magnus Appler. And he has been in the boot industry for 38 years. For the last 23 of those years, he was the chief designer for La Chameau boots, which are, again, a high-end, high-quality boot that you find, primarily or predominantly in Europe, but, there are La Chameau boots here in the U.S. as well. But he spent 23 years as their chief designer, and then he pulled the plug on La Chameau and moved back to Sweden to start Arxus. As he informed me, ARX, or Arxus itself, is from the Latin, and it means to guard or protect. And he really liked the sound of that. And so Arxus kind of represents, obviously, his feeling about, you have a protected center, and how important your feet are, particularly when you're hunting, because these guys are all very avid hunters as well. So he always thought that would make a great name for a boot company. And so that's really what's with the name. It's, how important your feet are, and how they're, in Magnus's opinion, they're one of the most important pieces of gear if you're going to be out, hunting all day and taking on swamps and climbing tree stands and saddles and saddle hunting and everything else. So
that's a really good point, because, I think the majority of people that buy a brand like yours buy it because it lasts longer, when really one of the main points is because it's better on your feet. I mean, they're just better designed. They fit you better. I mean, looser, like just generic molded muck type boots.
yeah.
I was constantly rolling my ankles. When you get the tighter and better fitting boots, you walk better, you get further. Just all around, it was better on my feet, especially if you got good insert in there.
It's back to that matter of the lasts that you use, and the production of lasts that are really anatomically correct for people's feet. And some of the lesser, some of the most popular boots, trying to think of a good way to phrase this, but some of the more popular boots that come in the United States, really their lasts are kind of like a generic last almost. They could make almost anybody's boot out of that last. But to make an anatomically correct last that is going to be comfortable and really is better suited, it's like the difference between, if tuxedos were available in large, medium, and small, right, versus having a tailored tuxedo.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really kind of buying more of a tailored approach when you have a really well anatomically correct last that's used in the production of the boots.
So the way I hunt, I was, I don't want to give brand name and tick somebody off, but the common rubber boots that people wear, I tried all different brands, and I was ripping them on barbed wire. I was Rick put a brand new pair. I think it was like the first or second time he used me. Put a thorn right through the boot, right through his foot, and it was bad, blood everywhere. And you know, I would go through 2 pairs of boots a year, sometimes 3.
Wow.
And with the pure rubber boots that you're working with, when it was Gumleaf, I still have that original pair, and they look like new.
I know. Yeah, your Saxons are going
I
on.
mean, what is it? It's
I think 3 or 4 years old now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And now this new pair is just like the Saxons. I mean, there's not a lot of difference.
Yeah, you know, you get what you pay for, right? That old adage, and quality does matter, that's for sure. And so the better the, you know, the better the lasts, the better the quality of the rubber, the better the materials that are used to make the boots. The Arxus boots, you know, they use, they make their own sole, but it's very similar to the Vibram sole. I could not tell any difference between a Vibram sole and the Arxus sole. They instead of they have a number of zipper boots, and rather than using the YKK zipper like the Gumleaf boots use, you know, they use a boot from Switzerland, which I'm sure is got to prove to be a very high quality. Or they use zippers made from Switzerland, so I'm sure that's going to turn out to be a very high quality, you know, zipper as well. I know you're not a big fan of zippers and vents and all that stuff, Dan, but
some people are.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Are they still waterproof, the zippered models?
Yeah, it's not the zipper itself that's waterproof. Inside of the zipper, between your leg and the zipper itself, there's a layer of rubber called a gusset.
Okay.
And the gusset is actually what keeps water from getting inside of the boot.
Yeah, not a seam sealed zipper then. It's a gusset. Okay.
Yeah, it's referred to as a gusset, but yeah, it's not the zippers that are waterproof. You know, it's the gusset inside of it that keeps water from getting inside the boot.
And Jack, I was on the website checking it out before we set this up, and it looks like there's several different boot models. Is there one or two maybe that you would recommend that are geared more towards deer hunting and swamps and stuff specifically?
Yes and no. You know, obviously something like the short boot is probably not going to be of much interest for most guys. I think that'll fit better into the dog world, you know, for upland hunters and dog trainers and all that. The boot that's most like our Royal Zip is going to be the called the Primo Nord Zip. The boots that Dan have are called the Pioneer, and they come either cotton lined or the ones that Dan tested out are called the Pioneer Nord. Nord is both German and Swedish for north. I think any of those will work well in a deer hunting environment, particularly if you're, you know, taking on swamps and things like that. I did a little experimentation this weekend. There is a boot that or a style that we offer called the Nord Lightweight, or LW. And I've been wearing them a lot. There's some things I really like about it because that's one of those boots that has the air cell lining that helps wick moisture away and out the shaft of the boot. And that particular boot also weighs about a pound less than a comparable tall rubber boot because it kind of has a rubber treated neoprene in the upper. Okay. And I would probably, I tested it out this week by going to one of the lakes nearby here and just standing in it right up to the top of the boot to see how long the neoprene would, the rubber treated neoprene would keep water out. And I stayed in it for about 10 minutes and I didn't have any water leaking into the boot, but I could feel that moisture was kind of building up. So that's probably not a boot. If I was hunting swamps or you know, I wouldn't go fishing in those boots, you know. They're not like waders. So I would stick probably as a deer hunter, I would stick with the all natural rubber boots, you know, right to the top. So the Nord Zip, the Pioneer or the Pioneer Nords like Dan has. I think those probably be the best ones. You know, if there's a good possibility that you're going to be crossing some streams, some swamps and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we got a pretty good amount of our viewers on now, and I think people would be interested to know if they could check these boots out. I heard a rumor that there might be a discount code for Beast members. Is that true?
There definitely is still with Gumleaf, and I did just set one up, I think, last night or within the last couple of days on the Arxus site as well. So on either site, you can just enter in Beast when you get to the checkout page, and you get a discount. It's 10% off on the Gumleaf boots, and it's a 5% discount right now on the Arxus brand because they're more expensive, frankly.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody listening, if they're willing to check them out, will appreciate that as well.
Yep.
What about and we do have some crossover, so we won't go too long in this, but you do upland bird boots too, so maybe give us like a minute or two about how people are using these for bird hunting also.
Well, I don't really have any experience there yet. I didn't send any of these to any of my bird hunters.
Okay.
Dan was kind of top of mind when I first started talking to Arxus. So,
let's scratch that. Dan, you've had a pair. Let's get Dan's review then.
There you go.
Dan, you've had a pair for a few months, which I wasn't aware of. Again, what model does Dan have, and how have you been liking those, Dan?
He has the Pioneer Nord. They're called. It's just a straight up tall rubber boot with neoprene lining, and I think they have a vent on the side, but
they have a small vent, which concerned me at first because I don't like vents. I know most people do. I'm the exception, as Jack likes to point out. But I'm pleasantly surprised that I don't mind the vent at all, really. But it's basically the same as the Gumleafs. I mean, they just work the same. They're a tall boot. You can go through deep water. You can they don't leak at all. I put them through some pretty heavy, lifting. I took them through some nasty stuff, and they held up. I mean, I went through some, my whole scouting season, been trying them out and pushing them through stuff, and they look like new. I think they'll hold up just like the Gumleaf did. I'm pleasantly surprised. And when you look at the price, they're cheaper than the boots you're buying because they're going to last longer. They're going to last that much longer. I do think there are some tricks that Jack could probably tell us about to maintain actual rubber longer, because rubber can get dry rot and stuff if you don't take care of it correctly. So there is some sort of maintenance to it, but if they're taken care of, I think they can last you. The average guy probably 5-6 years.
Yeah. Natural rubber, it's really, you have to think of it as an organic material, and you have to treat it like an organic material. If you didn't water a plant, in 2 weeks, it's dead, maybe a week. And, all natural rubber boots really the rubber comes from trees that refine, they bleed off the latex virtually from the trees and then put it through a refining process to get the rubber. But natural rubber boots, you have to periodically treat them, and how often periodically means really depends on how you're wearing them. It's quite different if you're, a deer hunter versus if you're working on a dairy farm, for example. You're in a really caustic environment. If you're working in a milking parlor, and
you're going to give me PTSD, Jack. I used to work on a dairy farm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah, all right. Well, then yeah. So you have really high levels of ammonia and uric acids and crap like that. So that stuff is not very boot friendly. But for your routine hunters, upland or deer hunters, periodic treatment, I would say, you can't overuse some of these boot protectants. Like we sell Granger's Rubber Boot Care with the Gumleaf line. There is a separate line for the Arxus, but I don't know if I'm going to carry that here in the States just because it's kind of difficult to import from Sweden. So I'll probably just stick with the Arxus or the Granger's Rubber Boot Care for the Arxus boots. But to Dan's point, if you monthly or quarterly treat your boots. I generally will wait until my wife has left the house, and then I head to the kitchen sink, because it's the deepest sink in our house, and I bring my boots in, I wash them off there. I use the nylon side of a sponge and a mild detergent, and I clean off the boots as much as I can. I let them air dry, and then I hit each boot with maybe 5 or 6 sprays of the Granger's Rubber Boot Care, spread it around with microfiber, and it really helps restore the natural rubber. So that's a key element. And as Dan has alluded, you can easily get years and years out of your boots by just doing that. There are some things you don't want to do with natural rubber boots, like store them near a heat source, store them near a fire, store them in direct sunlight. You really shouldn't even leave them in your truck, because the inside of your truck during the summer months can get up to 170 degrees. So you want to, when not in use, you probably want to keep your natural rubber boots in a cool, dry place. But if you do, just follow those things, and you'll have those boots for years.
Speaking of sun bleach, that's another problem with the competitors. I've noticed that with your boots, with them being pure rubber, they're not discoloring. The ones that are, partially plastic that you're buying with the, other brands, they're turning white. They're losing they're fading. The plastic rubber itself.
Oh, yeah.
And then they start cracking real bad.
Yeah. Are they camo too?
Some of them, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have one pair that I really liked, even though they were a cheaper pair, because they're real heavy and rated with 800 grams of insulation. And I like those for winter. But there better be snow on the ground, because they turned almost white. They faded so much.
Well,
in one season.
Hey, Jack, we got several people in the chat asking about, do any of the boot models come insulated? And we had another interesting question. Dan might chuckle, but some guys like to use ozone either in the tree stand, or they use ozone at home to deodorize their hunting garments. Do you have any idea if ozone would affect the natural rubber, and are there any insulated models?
Yeah, let's address the insulation first. With the Gumleaf boots, they were either just cotton lined, or they were lined with 4 millimeters of neoprene for insulation. And so I haven't ever come across what the magic formula is to relate grams of Thinsulate or whatever to millimeters of neoprene. It's probably out there somewhere, but all the Gumleaf boots were either just cotton lined or neoprene lined with 4 to 5 millimeters of neoprene. The Arxus boots are kind of all over the place. You can get just cotton lined boots, and there are some styles there that have 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, up to 5 millimeters of neoprene. So, I would just suggest that anybody that's interested, or, look at our website, or just give me a call. I end up speaking with well over half of our customers, either on our chat line or via email or just phone calls, to help advise people, how are you going to be using them? What state are you in? And how they're going to be wearing the boots predominantly. Are they looking for a boot that's just going to be for cold weather? And if so, these are not a replacement. I'm sure even the 5 millimeter Arxus boots are not going to be a replacement for a pack boot if you're up in a tree stand motionless for 5 hours and it's 0 degrees out. You're going to want something like an Arctic Shield or a pair of pack boots or something like that for the really brutal cold like that.
Well, one of the things is when you look at deer hunting is you almost need 2 boots, because you can't have any kind of insulation when it's September and October and it's 60 degrees. You need that thin layer of insulation. So really your boots get me through rut and pretty much through gun season. But if it's a real cold gun season, I might need something else. But then late season, I got to go to a different boot. I mean, I don't think you can do all that in one boot.
Yeah,
I really.
Yeah, I agree. There might be an advantage to a zipper boot there. For example, I used to find with my Royal Zips, I would wear them year round pretty much up here in Rochester. because I could wear them with the zipper all the way down, but because of that gusset we talked about earlier, they're still waterproof. So during summer months, even though it's a neoprene lined boot, I'd wear them zippers down, and I could still go trout fishing or out exploring, an area of the woods, where I might run across creeks or swamps and things like that and not worry about it. But with a straight up, boot like you had, the Pioneer Nords or something like that, then yeah, it kind of becomes, you have to decide how and where you're going to be using them most during hunting season.
Then I had one or two other questions, Jack. First of all, you talked about kind of like personalized customer service, which is great. That's obviously something you're not getting from a lot of big manufacturers. And you mentioned they could contact you. Do you have an email, or is it on the website? What's a good way if people want to reach out to you to get a hold of you?
They can email me at info@Gumleaf USA or info@Arxus USA. And I've decided I'm going to keep the same toll-free number for both companies. So it's 844-486-5323. That works out to 844 Gumleaf, but I'm going to stick with it anyway.
Sure.
So people can call me up if they have questions about sizing, about styles, and I try to hone in on what is and advise them which is going to be the best boot for them. And it's not necessarily going to be the most expensive boot. It's going to depend upon a number of different factors, including size, including their calf. If they have any unusual foot problems. Right now the Arxus boots are a little bit wider in the toe box than the Gumleaf boots were. So, and we had a small percentage, but significant, maybe 3% of Gumleaf customers who would end up, loving the boots, but they'd say they're just not wide enough. And so, they'd return them. But these Arxus boots are, I know from experience here, having attended Pheasant Fest and the recent BHA meeting where I had both, I'd have size 10s and 11s in both Gumleaf boots and Arxus boots. And in some cases, people would find the Gumleaf boot just a little bit too narrow, but they'd put on the Arxus boot and was like, oh, these are awesome. These are perfect, and so that's another slight difference between the two brands. But anyway, so back to your point, though, people can reach me either by email or just call 844-486-5323. I'll advise them on what boot I think is going to work best for them. And then once they get them, if they have any concerns, they're not happy with the fit, they've changed their mind, as long as they haven't worn the boots outside, they can give me a call back or email me. I'll send them a FedEx return label, and we'll exchange them. We'll refund their money. We'll really whatever they want to do. So, one of the things I really try to do is provide customer service the old-fashioned way. When I was growing up, probably when Dan was growing up, you remembered when you didn't dial a number and get dial 1 for this, dial 2 for that, dial 8 for this, and
sure,
all this shit.
Everybody loves those.
Yeah. So, if you dial our toll-free number, you're going to get me at the other end of this thing, answering the phone. So, you can't do that with too many other boot companies. Like I would venture to say probably none of them that you can, pick up the phone and speak with the owner if you have an issue, a problem, or you want some advice. And so that's another thing that I'm trying to bring to the market here is, it's a high quality boot, and we're trying to bring some high quality customer service as well.
Well, you read my mind, because my last question was, what do I want to do if I want to return them? So you beat me to it.
Yeah. As long as they haven't been worn outside, I don't, we sell every pair of boots we can bring into the U.S. So as long as they haven't been worn outside, I send people FedEx return labels, and so it doesn't cost them anything. We really, all of our business is online. We don't have really any dealers out there, and some people are apprehensive about that. They want to be able to try on a pair of boots first, and I understand that. But so much more, everything is online these days. You can buy anything and everything online. And so it really comes down to a more of a question, I think, of how well does the company respond to the needs of the customer. If they're not happy with the product, or if they are happy with the product, that's good feedback to know as well. But so we're really entirely an online business these days and try to cater to our customers.
No, I mean, both of them sound like great products, and it's good to see that you're going to continue supplying the market with an 100% all natural rubber boot, despite the factory closing down there. That was giving you the Gumleaf boot. So that's good, because I haven't owned a pair, but from what Dan said, the durability sounds significantly better. And I know Dan, of all the people I know, beats his boots up pretty good every year. So that's good to hear.
Yep.
And Dan, I didn't have any more questions for Jack. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? I looked in the chat, and we only had a couple, mostly about the insulation and the return. So I think we touched on those. If anybody's watching has any last minute questions they want to ask Jack, let me know. And Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
No, just wanted to get Jack on here, and basically, I've been his help getting to the deer market. So I've been getting a lot of questions about what's going on with Gumleaf, and I really couldn't answer because it wouldn't be proper for me to answer about what he's got going on. And now he's got into a position where he could answer, so we had him on to say it himself.
No,
Yeah, and I really appreciate the opportunity too. Thanks very much to both of you.
Yeah, informative.
Well, and I really like what you're doing, and we've kind of hit it off as buddies. It's nice when we get together at the shows, and I'm hoping that continues.
Yeah. Hope to see you. I think we're going to be together at the mobile hunting show coming up in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, it's coming up. That's Michigan, and
Michigan, right? Okay, wherever.
And, that's a good point. If anybody's watching there from the Michigan area, they can come see the boots in person and see Jack in person at the mobile show. You got any other shows you're going to?
I'm going to be doing that same mobile hunting show down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I forget exactly when it is, but I think it's, I don't know, several weeks either before or after the Michigan show. So yeah, if anybody wants to come and try them on, I usually I don't really bring enough inventory so that everybody who wants a pair can walk off with a pair. It's too unpredictable how many and what sizes and different styles and all that stuff. So I usually bring a size run so people can try them on. And for these upcoming shows, I'll have both Gumleaf and Arxus boots there so people can try them both on, see which one fits them best. And most importantly, then they know what their EU size is, because both Gumleaf and Arxus boots are going to be in EU sizes. I'm still familiarizing myself with Arxus sizing. It seems to match up really well in men's sizes and women's sizes. It runs off. Arxus runs a little small in women's sizes, but in men's sizes, it runs pretty comparable to the Gumleaf. So people can try them on there, and whether they buy next week or next year, at least they know, when they do order, what size and style they want, and that they're going to fit, and it's going to be an out-of-box success.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, and one more time, there is a promo code. So if anybody's looking at, I did put the link to both websites. So Gumleaf USA and Arxus USA. Also put the customer service information that you gave us, Jack, and the toll-free number in the video description. So if anybody's watching, wants to order a pair or wants to reach out to Jack, all that information is available in the video description, and you can use code BEAST for a discount, which again, I'm sure everybody appreciates that. So thanks for offering that, Jack.
Yep, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch everybody. Just a reminder, normally we have a Tuesday show. This Tuesday, I am not going to be available, so we're going to be back on the 21st. So we'll see everybody back in May 21st, and thanks for tuning in.
Okay, take care. Have a good weekend.